Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations, my friends. I'm Linda Joy, Mindset Elevation Coach, publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine, about to celebrate 20 years of inspiring women around the world to live an intentional life. I'm also the creatrix of the upcoming Inspired Life event, a 2-day event all about love, light, and laughter. It's a intentional sacred experience for women to join us for 2 days for over 50 workshops, a divine marketplace, a reader's lounge, a pamper room, and our intention as a collective is to remind you of the truth of who you are. You can learn more and get on the ticket VIP list at inspiredlifeevent.com. And I'm thrilled to say that my special guest today is actually going to be a speaker and an exhibitor in the Divine Marketplace. So I got to tell you, when I saw my guest's message about this topic, I was like, oh my goodness, Francine, we got to get you on the show. So, are you addicted to busyness, my friend? Is it sabotaging your happiness and success? I was there at one time. Today, Francine Tirrell joins me to help you uncover what's truly keeping you stuck. She shares mindset shifts and spiritual insights to help you reclaim your energy, trust yourself, and confidently make your big ass up level in life and business. She is a spiritual mindset coach, energy healer, and founder of Forever Changed Coaching. She works with women who are ready for that big ass up level, but feel stuck, overwhelmed, and unsure where to begin. And I've been there, it's not fun. Juggling it all, they struggle to create the space needed to figure out what's next in their life and, if applicable, their business. She helps her clients unravel the patterns keeping them spinning in overdrive so they can reclaim their energy, confidence, and clarity. She does this through a powerful blend of mindset coaching, EFT, oracle card readings, and energy healing. Can you now see why I love her work and her message? And she supports women in clearing the mental and emotional clutter holding them back. Welcome, Francine. I'm so glad that you're here today.
I am so glad to be here and to have this conversation.
Well, one of the things we were talking off air, when I saw that addicted to busyness come through, I'm like, oh my God, 10 women came into my mind. I'm like,
Right.
I was that person 20 years ago, and I can see patterns of how it can sneak back into my life. So when did you identify that there was an addiction to busyness for so many women?
Yeah. So I would say I think I've always somewhat known this, but I don't think I ever put the name to it until the last couple of years. And there's so many different addictions. There's, we're addicted to food, which I also used to be. I used to weigh 300 pounds 30 years ago. So I I was, there's addiction to alcohol, there's addiction to drugs, and then there's the addiction to busyness. The difference with the others are, there's labels. You're fat, you're a drunk, you're an addict. But when you're addicted to busyness, you get pats on the back. You get atta girls, right? Wow, look at everything you're accomplishing. You're doing so well. Our worthiness is attached, oftentimes, I'm not going to make a blanket statement, but often is attached to what we do. So if we're doing, we're worthy. And I think until we can heal that feeling of not feeling worthy, then the busyness continues.
Yeah, and as you were speaking, I was thinking back to those times. It is a worthiness thing For me, it was, if I'm busy, I'll prove my worth. If I
Mhm.
keep going, and you just brought me back to that time in the 90s when I had my other store. It was, I pushed so hard, and at the time, I didn't know I was doing it to fulfill a wound inside myself, hindsight, of course.
Right.
I see that it was a deep wound, that I wasn't valuable or worthy as I am, that
Yeah.
I needed all these, I guess you pats on the back, I guess you can say, business awards, community awards, and can become addicting, can it?
Absolutely, and it also stops us from feeling, right? So if we're really busy, we don't have time to be mindful and sit with our feelings and our emotions. So if I'm busy, there's no space for anything else. I'll share a couple of years ago, I mean, I've always been a woman who, a little bit more type A personality, always had multiple jobs, my hands in a lot of things. But since 2020 or the end of 2019, I've been in my business full time. And so less hands in my, in multiple buckets. So a couple of years ago, I had signed up for a 3-day workshop. At the last minute, something came up and I had to cancel. But I had 3 days with nothing scheduled on my calendar because I had been planning to not be at my office. And I woke up on the first day and I went into I call it my serenity room. We have this little reading room. And I went into my serenity room to read. And I started to feel anxious. And my internal brain said, I have to go do something. But because I've done enough work on myself, I went, hold on, what's happening right now? Because you don't actually have anything to do. But I could feel like almost like a little bit of anxiousness of just sitting because I was being lazy. I was wasting time, whatever the story was. And I am an EFT practitioner. So I did some tapping on it to try to understand what was coming up. And that's when it came up is this like, if I'm just sitting here, I'm not worthy, right? I'm not worthy just by existing. So I allowed myself to just continue sitting, right? Like feeling that feeling because in the past, I wouldn't have had the space to even acknowledge that I was feeling a little uncomfortable. But knowing, having the tools in my toolbox, I knew something felt off and I allowed myself the opportunity for curiosity. And once I realized that, I was like, "Oh, okay. I need to just sit here and allow myself to feel it," because that's the thing is like I could have just gone and distracted myself by answering emails or doing whatever needed to be done at my desk. But the real work was me sitting in that discomfort. And so often we're not willing to sit in the discomfort.
Ooh, I swear you've been living in my mind and body, woman. That's exactly how I used to feel, like
Yeah,
guilty. Guilty is the word I would use. How dare you not be doing something right now? How dare you sit out on the porch and enjoy the beautiful view of your pond, right?
right.
I Those internal conversations that were trying to tell me that I wasn't worthy just for being myself.
Yeah.
And do you notice I don't know if like myself, I work with all women, right? I don't want to assume you do.
I have worked with men, but I would say 99% of my business is women. So yes. So I notice it more with women.
Yes,
Um,
that's what I wanted to know because I see it when they don't know how to be still. And I follow feminine principles at
mhm,
this point in my life. I didn't 30 years ago, where there's a flow, right? There's ebbs and flow with energy, nature, and within ourselves. We're not meant to be doing all the time. We're meant to be. And I had to learn how to be. And it
right.
sounds like you had that experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said something about sitting, looking at your pond, and that is doing, but doing from the feminine, right? Sometimes you probably get amazing downloads when you're sitting there
That's
that
right.
help your business. But we think of it as there's a label of laziness. You're not doing, you're not active. Right? It's more of a passive doing than an active doing. But yeah, I think now my belief, and I'm sure yours is the same, it's more important than the active doing.
Oh my goodness, it really is, and everything you just said is so true. I get my best intuitive downloads then. My projects come to life faster and easier because I give space to receive, to hear, to create the sacred containers for them. Where in the past, when I was in the other energy 30 years ago, it was, I didn't even take time to think. It was like, what's the next task? There was like that never-ending to-do list that I
Right.
would just keep going down. I wasn't present.
Right.
I
Well, and I
wasn't
think that's
present.
it. It's the active presence, right? So
Mm.
that's one of the ways to break the addiction is allowing yourself that active presence to feel that discomfort, like I did a few years ago, right? Oh, okay, I need to sit here and feel this feeling. And a lot, and I think part of it, most of the women I work with live a lot in their head. A lot of the work is having them, recognize that there's something below their neck and feel their body and allow themselves to feel into that feeling so that when they're on the other side of that discomfort, they recognize that they're safe. I call myself a control freak in recovery. So I always
Oh
needed
my,
like I needed evidence that I was going to be okay, right? So sit in that discomfort and then on the other side of it, oh, okay, nothing bad happened. I'm still okay. So the next time I can sit even longer in the discomfort until it isn't uncomfortable anymore.
oh my God. I giggled out loud when you said that about being a control freak, because in a couple of my books that I published, I say in one of the intros, I was always a micromanager of the divine. Like,
Ooh,
okay, I want this delivered at this time in this way. Like I held on so tightly.
right.
And now when you enter that state of flow and trust, it's so different. So I had a laugh when you said that because I can relate, Francine.
Right. I want to surrender, but I'll tell you how it's going to work.
Exactly. It's nice to hear someone else admit that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And once
Yeah.
I started surrendering and letting go and trusting, life just opened up. I'm not saying I don't still have those tendencies because that's how I'm wired, but I choose trust and flow now.
Yeah. And
And
I bring it back to presence. I had a couple of years ago, I had a medical scare and I was sitting in a waiting room waiting to meet with the doctor. And I went down this rabbit hole of how am I going to manage the treatments and blah, blah, blah. So I was like literally creating a plan. And then all of a sudden I caught myself and I was like, what are you doing? There's nothing in this moment. There was nothing wrong with me. That could have changed, and it didn't when the nurse came. But so my mantra is right here, right now, I'm okay. Right here, right now, I'm fine. Because so often we're living in the past or we're living in the future, and we're not in this present space. And
yes,
that's the only thing if we want to talk control, that is the only thing we have control over.
yes, and it sounds like our backgrounds is the same because I used to have anxiety, which of course is rooted in the past, and
Sure.
then fear of the future. And my mantra is hand on heart. Every time anxiety comes up, not as much anymore, but it for many years, and it's in this moment, all is well. Because in this
Mm,
moment, I'm sitting in this chair having this beautiful conversation with you.
right.
But
And
I
nothing
think,
else exists.
yes, only now. And I never used to get that hearing all the spiritual teachers, Deepak, Eckhart, and I'm like, how the hell can they be in the now? What about this and this and this? And then I got it.
I was listening to, and her name escapes me, a woman a few years ago that teaches on manifestation. And she said, my husband and I were driving and we were listening to it. We actually had to stop it and rewind it because she said, in this moment, you don't have debt. And what her point was, you can't be in the debt and be present listening to her. And I was like, whoa, right? Because we can't walk and chew gum. We can't do two things, right? And I was
And
like, that is fascinating because if we're always dwelling on the what if and I have all this debt or whatever it is, we're not present listening to her.
yeah,
And I
it's
was like,
so true, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. I mean, that like was one of those, you have those spiritual things, you're like, hold on, I need a minute to process this. What's going on?
Oh, yes, I've had many of those moments.
Right.
Those are those the times when we pivot
Yep.
and something shifts within us. And
Yeah.
Francine, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, I want to talk about what it means what you mean by a big ass up level and how you help women recognize when it's time for theirs.
Perfect.
So we'll be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Francine Tirrell, spiritual mindset coach. You can learn more at francinetirrell.com. That link is also in the show notes on whatever platform you're listening on. We'll be right back.
Are you feeling called to clear your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual blockages? That's your soul and environment speaking to you and asking you to uncover all the clutter that is preventing you from living the life you envision. Felicia Messina DeHady, soul coaching master practitioner and trainer and teacher of advanced interior alignment and medicine wheel feng shui, supports her international clientele by creating inner and outer transformation in their environments and their lives by combining elements from her extensive training, experience, and intuition. Felicia is a master intuitive coach, certified by Colette Baron Reed, and has served as a master mentor for Denise Linn's Elemental Space Clearing certification course, as well as her Ultimate Clutter Clearing. Explore her offerings, including certification courses in feng shui, space clearing, soul coaching, and Reiki at FeliciaDeHady.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations, and we are having this empowering conversation about our addiction to busyness as a woman, um, doing the work to uncover what's really keeping you stuck, and so much more with Francine Tirrell. So Francine, I love that phrase, big ass up level, because I've
Mm,
gone through a few of those in my life.
right.
But I want your definition. Explain that to us. And then how do you help women recognize when it's time for theirs? Because I think so many women stay frozen or in fear and don't want to go into that next level. But I think there's magic in the next level.
Absolutely. So the big ass up level can be that actually came a couple of years ago when I hired somebody to help me with copy. And she was like, "What do you do?" And anyone who knows anything about coaching, you have to have like a niche, right? And I'm a little niche resistant. And she was like, "Well, what do you do?" And I would tell her all the things I did with different clients. And she's like, "Oh, you help them make big ass up levels." I was like, "You know what? Actually, that's exactly what I do." But it's different for everyone. So for some women, like I've worked with women who want to leave a corporate job to follow a passion project, right? And then I've worked with other women who want to get back in the dating. So I think of it as whatever is your edge. Whatever, you mentioned fear, whatever has that little fear factor and maybe you're a little afraid to do. I had a woman I worked with last year. She's a website designer. And for a year had been working on her own, and I'm using air quotes here, had been working on her own website and not getting it done. We started working together. And what we uncovered was she was actually in business with her mom, and her mom was retiring. So, what we uncovered in our work together was that she actually needed to rebrand her business so that it was now just hers. Once she had that awareness, she got the new brand, got the new website, like within months, it was all done. So sometimes you're not even aware. Like that to her, it was the day-to-day thing she wasn't even getting done, but it really was something deeper than that. So I think it's anything that there's an edge and you're feeling a little uncomfortable, right? Or it might even be spinning a little bit because you're like, should I do this? Should I do that? What do I want to do? No, I'm going to stay comfortable. So
That
and have
resonates for me. And I love what you discovered, or that client discovered, is
yes.
she thought it was one thing.
Right, she complained about the time she doesn't have time, she's working on her client stuff, right? Like, all the normal excuses.
Yeah, but there's something deeper when you're willing to
Right,
do the excavation work.
right.
And
Yeah,
then that's exactly what happens too, isn't it? Once you get to that moment of excavating what the real truth is, it's almost like everything opens up. The flow comes
absolutely.
in, the inspiration comes in, time bends itself. Because look what she got done that she thought previously she couldn't get done.
Right. I had a woman I worked with a couple of years ago that was an executive in a corporate position, and when she first came to me, she was burnt out, exhausted, not a good mom, not a good employee, not a good partner, and She really didn't know what to do. She had some passion projects that she wanted to do, but she had all this fear around money. So she couldn't leave this well-paying corporate job. And a few months after working together, she did give her notice and they asked her to stay. So she did. And then she got more burnt out. And then I think it was like December of whatever year it was, she said she quit again. And they said, "What do you want?" And she said, "I want to be a contractor and work, I don't know, 10 or 20 hours a week, and that's it." And they said, "Okay." And in January of the following year, she did that. She quit. She did one project with them, and then she started her own business. And it really was the work that we had done was she had to work through the money fears, the stories she was telling herself about her value attached to what she does. And after she quit her job and started her own business, she ran a marathon. Last summer, I think she spent half the summer in Europe with her family, right? Like, so she didn't really know what she wanted. She just knew where she was not the right place anymore, too. So sometimes it's a little bit of both that you have something and you want to pursue it, but other times it's us uncovering and figuring out what exactly it is.
Well, that thing, what you just mentioned, awareness, that's the
Mm,
biggest thing, isn't it? Because I
absolutely.
start all my clients with awareness. If you don't know where the truth of where you are right now, whether that's emotionally, physically, spiritually, job, health, how can you ever get where you want to go?
Right. And you don't even need to know where you wanna go
Not the
necessarily. You just
map.
need to know this isn't where you wanna be anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost like kind of like that day that you spoke about at the beginning where you didn't know how to just be with yourself.
Right.
The fact that you had the awareness to recognize the feelings and emotions that were coursing through you, that was a moment of awareness.
Right.
Do you think that a lot of us, especially as women, we put ourselves last on our to-do list? And
If we're
so,
even on the to-do list, Linda,
oh, thank you.
let's be real.
Yes. And I think they become, we as women, when we're in that mode, we really become disconnected from ourselves. I can remember 30 years ago when I got on this path going, it's kinda like that movie Runaway Bride. I saw it when Richard Gere says, "What kind of eggs do you like?" She goes, "I don't know. I don't know what kind of eggs I like. I just eat whatever my past partners ate." And I started
Mm,
bawling because
yeah.
that was me. I'm like, "I don't even know what kind of eggs I like." And I had to get to know my true self. Do you notice that with women, they don't even
Right.
have a connection with their deeper self?
Absolutely. I teach a workshop called How to Do More by Being More,
Mm,
because so often when we introduce ourselves, we say, "I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister," right? Like what we're doing, but who are we being, right? We have the checklist and the to-do list of the things that we do because those are our roles, but there's so much more to us. And if we can show up as who we're being, there's so much more that opens up for us.
it's so true. And what are some of the patterns you see most that often keep women stuck in either overwhelm, burnout, overcommitting, and how do you help them break free?
Yeah. So great question. I think there's a couple of things. One, it's intuitively I'm torn between two words. So I'm going to say both of them because it may resonate differently. Our inability or our resistance to vulnerability.
Oh, yes, yes.
Right? Like I was like inability, no resistance, right? It's a little bit of both and it can be both. For a long time and sometimes even now, I used to say vulnerability is a four-letter word for me, right?
Mm.
Asking for our needs to be met. Whew, that's a big one, right? We really need to find a way to be able to ask for our needs to be met. And then also recognizing that self-care is not selfish. I had a conversation with a woman years ago where I said to her, you need to put the oxygen mask on you first before you put it on anyone else. And she said that that made her so angry that I could even say that. And I said, well, if you're not here, if you're not healthy and well for your children, how is that going to serve you're dead, right? Like if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be here for your kids. but we have to take care of self before we take, and that's not a selfish piece, right? That
Yeah.
is, we get to show up better for those around us when we actually are taking better care of ourselves. And then boundaries, right? Saying no is okay, but you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort because it will feel uncomfortable the first few times. I've been saying no for 10 years and I still feel bad sometimes, but I can't not do it or cancel something or, say this collaboration doesn't work anymore, right? Being pulled out because we want to be liked, right? We don't want FOMO. We want to be involved, but being able to create boundaries around certain things as well.
Well, the vulnerability piece really speaks to me. And for
Yes,
me, I can say I didn't have the ability in my younger years to be vulnerable because of all the childhood wounds. Then
sure.
it became, as I became aware that I had giant walls on my heart, then I became resistant to letting them down once I knew they were there. But it's been the greatest gift I ever gave myself
Yeah, of course.
to be
And
vulnerable.
And one of the things that I teach my clients about vulnerability is vulnerability is the ability to ask for what you need. That doesn't mean the person you're asking has to give it to you. And I think that's a hard one, right? Because I can say to you, "Hey Linda, I need $1,000 from you," right? "I'm in
Mhm.
a really rough space financially and I really need this. Can you help me?" And you get to have boundaries and say, "Gee, Francine, no, I can't." But that doesn't mean I can't ask someone else. That just means you're not the right person to fill that need, or I need a hug, or whatever that is. And when the person said, and so often we're afraid to ask because we're afraid of, and I'm going to say this word and then I'm going to qualify the rejection. And I don't think it's a rejection of self. I just think it's the other person. Um, Having their own boundaries. I used to be a professional matchmaker and a date and relationship coach. And people used to say to me, "I don't want to feel rejected." And I said, "Well, let's flip the switch. You don't want a second date with everyone you go out on. Are you actually rejecting them or choosing you?" And they go, "Oh, well, I'm choosing me." And I'm like, "Okay." So the same is on the other side of the coin too, right?
I
It's
love that. That was a great way to show them that it is
yeah,
truly rejection, but that in vulnerability, I think that is what we fear, right?
right.
And then we kind of shut down again when
Yeah.
it doesn't go the way we want. But I love how you just flip the switch to say, no, they're just honoring their boundaries. It's not a personal reflection on us.
Right. And it still can hurt our woundings, right? It still may feel bad, but we the work is to not let it stop us from asking again.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And the more you ask, I think you build your courage muscles. And
Absolutely. I remember the first time I set a boundary and said no to someone, the discomfort was like, and I could have said yes, but I had made a decision to say no. And I had to sit with that discomfort, and I was like, "I should just do it. I should just do the thing," right? So I don't have to be uncomfortable, but I knew that I had to practice it.
yeah, it's isn't it funny? We all become teachers of our greatest struggles,
Oh,
right?
of course.
And same here. That's why we're resonating so much. We're going to take
Right.
another quick break, Francine. When we come back, I want to talk about um, some of the spiritual tools you use, like EFT, energy healing, and more.
Yep. Perfect.
We'll be back in a moment, my friends. I am with Francine Tirrell, a spiritual mindset coach, energy healer, and founder of Forever Change Coaching. Please visit her at francinetirrell.com, and we'll be right back.
You don't have to identify as a creative to reap the benefits of a daily creativity practice. Even 15 minutes a day offers a wealth of benefits to your emotional, physical, social, and spiritual well-being. As a natural-born teacher and facilitator, Cindy Winsell consciously merges her 35 years as an educator with her in-depth training as a certified creative depth coach, certified Zentangle teacher, soul collage facilitator, journey circles facilitator, and moon circles guide to empathically and joyfully guide women to tap into their creativity through expressive arts as tools for healing and transformation. Cindy works with women ready to step into creative exploration as a tool for healing. Together, you will develop your own exciting insights and approaches that will help you awaken to possibility. Visit cindywinsell.com for creative classes and more.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. This is Linda Joy, the host, with Francine Tirrell, spiritual mindset coach, and we're talking about the addiction to busyness, vulnerability, boundaries, and so much more. So, when I introduced you, I mentioned tools like EFT, energy healing, oracle cards, and you blend that intuitively with your mindset coaching. Why has that combination been so powerful for you and your clients?
Yeah. So a lot of the women that I work with live in their brain. So it's important, coaching can be very cerebral, but it can also move us into our body a little bit and incorporating these, I use EFT. And for those that don't know what EFT is, some people know it as tapping. It is a healing modality that combines elements of acupressure and modern psychology. And when you tap on certain points on the body and focus on a specific issue, it can help release the emotional blockage and restore balance to your energy system. And oftentimes, my clients are trying to figure out what's going on, and they're doing it from the same place that the issue was created. And we can't solve the problem from the same mindset that it was created from. So EFT or different healing techniques, I have a couple of different healing methodologies that I use. They get to a deeper place than just, and it takes them out of their head. And then oracle cards, sometimes there's just an added level of guidance, right? That's needed. So that can just be a full session or just an add-on to our session to just kind of give some guidance. But when you combine EFT with coaching, I feel like it really gets deeper. And sometimes it gets to the root of what clients didn't even know was keeping them stuck, like that client with the website last year. That came from a result of EFT and using some other modalities because she did not realize that that was part of it. Like that she actually had to grieve that her and her mom weren't going to be, I think they were in business for 20 years. So that wasn't a conscious awareness. And sometimes we have to get to the subconscious to actually see what's really going on, what's keeping us stuck.
And I love of all the tools that you mentioned, I've used personally myself for my healing journey,
Yeah.
and they work.
Yes.
And I say to anyone that's listening right now, if you're feeling stuck, if you are feeling like you're the micromanager of the divine, lean in, reach out to Francine because we don't have, this is what I tell all women, we don't have to walk this path alone, right? There is always someone, I've always seen this visual, Francine, that I was given maybe 25 years ago. It's a spiral. I always see it as a trail in nature. And there's ahead of me, there's all women holding their lanterns going up the spiral. And then when I turn around, there's women behind me holding the lanterns. But no matter what, there's always someone holding the light for the one behind them.
Oh, what a beautiful visual. I was visualizing that as you said it. That's
I'm going to tell you,
beautiful.
it was given to me in a vision, and use it with my clients all the time. I go, all of us are on the journey. Some of us, like yourself and myself, we've gone through the muck. We've gone and excavated, and we've found these tools that helped us, and now we share them with others. But we're still on the same path as everyone else.
Because
We
there's
just
still
maybe
more excavating to do.
always, always,
Always.
always. I've always said this for years. If anyone tell any guru, any teacher says that they're there, run
Right.
like hell because there is no there.
Exactly. There
And
is when we've passed on from this existence, right? Until we get to the
yes,
next one. Yeah.
so what we're going to do is I want to talk about Um, you're using these powerful tools. So do you do it in just personal coaching? Do you offer group coaching? Tell us a little bit of how people can work with you.
Yeah, so I have done a group coaching program in the past. I'm considering starting that up again, maybe later this year or at the beginning of next year. But I also do workshops and programs. I have a program that is rolling out in the fall where I'm combining EFT, these conscious codes that I use, and coaching, and it's called From Overwhelmed to Thriving. It's gonna be a 6-week program, so they'll be combined in that, and then I combine them in my one-on-one coaching. So depending upon what my clients need based on our conversation, um, is what shows up. Sometimes it's just straight coaching. Sometimes it's an entire EFT session. Sometimes it's a healing. If they come to me and they're really stressed, I have an adrenal reset healing that I'll use on them. So really is dependent upon the client. And I can see 3 clients in a day and do 3 different things for the clients because coaching is not my agenda. It's really what the client needs. Um, and just letting them sometimes we may make a decision in our last session. Hey, we're gonna do some EFT on that in the next session. And then we get to the next session and something else is showing up for them. And we focus on what that is.
Tells me you're an intuitive coach. You're tapping into what they need and then pulling from your spiritual tool chest to serve them. And I think that's
Yes.
the most powerful kind of coach where they don't expect us, the client, and I lead the same way. They don't expect us to fit into a box
Right.
because I think that paradigm doesn't work anymore, right?
Right.
We're
Right.
intuitive, sensitive, energetic beings. We have to be guided through all elements of who we are, not just one element. Like we can't just talk to the mind.
Right.
We got to connect with the body, the spirit, the soul, the essence to get to the stuff. The stuff
Yes.
that we usually don't want to get to, but it's the most healing thing once you're on the other side of it.
Absolutely. And our mind lies to us 100% of the time. Our real truth is in our body, right? So if we can get tapped into our bodies and feel, I teach my clients how to muscle test using their body as a pendulum. Show me, I say, show me yes, show me no. Usually we fall forward for yes and we fall backwards for no. So like if you have to make a decision, is this for my highest and best good? Yes. Because our brain is going to say, no, I can't afford it. It's too much money. I don't have the time. I don't, whatever the excuse is. But our body is like, yes, please do this thing. I need this thing. Or no, this isn't the right fit for us. And allowing our body is intuitive. We are all intuitive. I hosted my niece's high school graduation on Saturday and sat with a bunch of her friends at the end of the day doing some card readings. And I looked at all of them and they're all so intuitive, but they're all on their phones that they aren't even aware. They're not quiet enough to let anything come in. Right. But like
Yeah.
teaching them to just be quiet for just a short period of time and listen to what is coming in for them.
I'll tell you, I have a 25-year-old grandson. So when you said looking at the phone, I'm like, that's all they know. They were the
Right.
generation that a freaking phone.
Yes.
And and it breaks my heart because they're disconnected from their essence, their intuition, the
Yeah.
people around them. So when you said that, it just brought back some conversations we've had with him
Right.
about, being present in your own life. The stuff
Yeah.
on your phone is not your life.
Right. And it
Everything
is, they
happening
they
around you
make
is.
it their lives, right?
Yes, yes. And we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, I want to talk about something because you just touched on it in the previous episode. A lot of women ask me, so I'm going to ask you the same question. Linda, how do I know when it's fear talking to me? I call it my negative Nelly, right?
Yep.
Or my intuition talking to me. How do I know which one is speaking? And I'm really curious what your thoughts are on that.
Okay. Perfect. I'm
We'll
looking
be
forward to
back
it.
in a moment, my friends. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy. With me today is Francine Tirrell, spiritual mindset coach, energy healer, and she is passionate about helping women who are ready for a big ass up level. Learn more at francinetirrell.com. We'll be back in a moment.
Your worth is not determined by the number on the scale. You are enough right now, exactly as you are. If you're like many midlife women, you've thought, if I could just reach my ideal weight, I'd be so much happier. But the truth is, what we're really craving is our own love and acceptance. And Sarah Haas is that guide for your journey. Sarah is a women's weight release expert and body love coach and walks alongside midlife women ready to say yes to self-care, self-compassion, and body love so they can become the healthy, vibrant, and unapologetically confident women they're here to be. Her holistic approach integrates nutrition, body movement, and self-care to nurture body, mind, and spirit. Visit sarahhaaswellness.com for supportive resources, programs, and more for midlife women ready to elevate their health.
Thanks for circling up with us today. I'm Linda Joy, your host, and Francine Tirrell is here with me today. So, Francine, this last segment, I wanted to talk about how you help women decipher the messaging, the feelings, the emotions that are coming up, how they decipher between fear and their higher self. Because it's a question I know I've gotten a lot over the years. So, what would you share with them?
Yeah, I love this question. And I'm going to share a story that happened to me. Um, and this is how I teach my clients as well. It goes back to listening to the body. So I was laid off from my corporate job in December of 2019. I've been a coach for 12 years, but I had my own story that I couldn't quit my corporate job and blah, 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 blah. And in December of 2019, I was with a startup that didn't quite start up. So in December, they closed, and then I went back looking for a job because that's what you do. And then this little thing called COVID happened. And then in April of 2020, somebody reached out and said, "Hey, are you coaching?" And I was like, "Sure," because other than painting my entire house, what else am I doing right now? So I started taking on some coaching clients, but I was still looking for a job. And what I noticed every time I had an interview, my body, like I could feel the anxiety in my body. My body constricted. I was miserable going to having, and they were all Zoom, having an interview. But when I was coaching, my body was expansive. You can't see me, but my arms are out by my side, right? Like I could feel the expansiveness. And finally, I said to my husband, "We're going to have to figure this out because my body is saying no, 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 no." And the job piece was fear of money, right? It was, I
Oh,
have to have a secure paycheck. I have to do this. So, sitting in first, I had to be aware that there was something coming up, right? And that those two feelings of the constriction versus the expansion was information. And then I had to look at, okay, well, what's going on here? Well, I'm used to having a steady pay. I'm used to having, vacation and doing all the things. And then trust and surrender, right? Like, how can I know that whatever's meant for me? I had a client say to me, and I love when your clients teach you. Last year, she said, "Whatever's meant for me will not pass me." And I was like, right, right. And that's true. Like, I check in with myself. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Yeah, it is. I muscle test. Should I be looking at doing something else? No. And really listening to that, but paying attention. Fear is just information. And it's often what we think we're afraid of isn't usually what we're afraid of. I jumped out of a plane 12 years ago, and the gentleman said to me, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Well, because I'm afraid of heights." And he said, "No, you're not." And I kind of got a little indignant. I was like, "Don't tell me what I'm afraid of." And he said, "No, what you're afraid of is falling." And that shifted everything for me when it came to fear, because so often what we think we're afraid of isn't actually the real thing. So we have to really get clear on what's driving the fear, like what's really underneath that. Right? Because I've been in tall buildings. I wasn't afraid of those, but I don't want to fall from a tall building, right? It's the falling part. So it's finding out, like really getting to the root of what the fear is. And then oftentimes it's recognizing that it's just a story that we've created and being willing to let that story go. Sometimes there's some EFT involved, sometimes there might be some energy work involved. Sometimes it might just be some homework and journaling every day, right? But there's something about being willing to let that go.
And I love how you describe the feeling in the body,
Yes.
constriction, expansive.
Yeah.
And for me, I've always described it as, that wisdom that comes in. It's either fear or that intuitive wisdom. And I had to learn how to feel it and decipher it in my body as you did. And some of the phrases I use is when it's I named mine, my inner critic, Negative Nelly, like 30
Yeah.
years ago. I don't know why I picked Nelly, so I apologize to all Nellies out there. But I when I started to tune in, I'm like, "Oh, when she's speaking, I feel less than. I don't
Mm,
feel enough. I feel unworthy. I feel like a failure." But when my soul is speaking, my intuition, I feel filled with possibility, hope, love. And then everything you just shared resonates with me of how I feel it now in my body. But
right.
those were the words, like, until we can identify it in our body, it's hard to shift it. So when you were able to identify it and work with yourself on it, don't you feel that just that moment of awareness of who's leading the conversation right now? It gives us the power to make a choice to tune into the intuition over the fear.
Absolutely. And I don't believe change can even happen if we don't have awareness first, right? So we have to be aware of, this doesn't feel right, or I know I want to do something else, or whatever the thing is. But it starts with awareness, and then the steps and the tools then support the change.
Yeah, yes. And there was something else, Francine, you said you shared a personal aspect of your life that at one time you overate. That was one of your healing
Mm,
journey. And I was the opposite for the first 35 years of my life. I was anorexic.
mm.
So, but that's all comes to a sense of control, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I
It's
often to this day, I don't think I've ever been hungry a day in my life, right? Like it's a numbing coping mechanism, right? Ooh, if I am uncomfortable, I'll go fill that hole that doesn't feel good. Now I sit with it instead of filling it.
Yeah, and I now nourish myself because I
Mm,
am worthy of the nourishment, right?
love that.
And
Yes.
the reason I bring that up, I'm curious because I think those who were so disconnected from their bodies through things like we struggled with,
Right.
it was a longer journey for me to reconnect. And something you said, I think at the beginning, it was almost like you were in my therapist's office 35 years ago. I remember I was maybe 30, 31. I'm 63 for context. And my anorexia was really, I was 90 pounds at 30 years old. Never hospitalized, but it was a struggle. And I
Yeah.
said to her, she was trying, and thankfully she was spiritual and she had all those tools. And she goes, describe yourself to me. I go, well, really? I feel like I live in my head and this thing below the neck is an appendage that I just have to carry around.
Mm,
And when I think of me saying that, how many other women are so disconnected their body, they don't have the awareness of the present moment, because that was me. And
right.
I didn't know how to decipher the language of my body, as you've been beautifully sharing, because of that disconnection. Did you experience that too? And
Yeah, this is probably part of my healing journey because I when I was 30, my mom passed away right before I turned 26, and my sisters and I stayed in our home together for a couple of years. And when I was 30, I was eating 3 meals a day out of my house because I was working 2 jobs, and I got to a place where I couldn't afford it anymore. So I just started eating better. I never went on a diet, and my elastic waistband started getting looser. So over the course of, I don't even know, a year, maybe 2 years, I lost over 100 pounds. I still don't resonate, like, I still don't really feel connected to that person because I mean, this was so for context, I turned 60 this year. So it was literally, I have a picture of my 30th birthday party and a picture of my 60th, and I'm half the person. And I do feel like I was not even connected to that body, to that person.
Same here,
Because
same here.
yeah, like, I don't and people are like, "Oh, you must feel really good about yourself." I'm like, I don't maybe, I don't know." Like, I don't think I felt bad back then, but I don't think I felt at all. I don't think I felt anything,
I think
but
I can agree with that. I don't think I felt anything. Like,
yeah.
anyone that knows me from that period, oh, like, they tell me, You're always so joyful," and they didn't see that I had an eating disorder. Does that
Right.
make sense? They saw me, but my on the inside, I was not joyful.
Yeah.
I was full of anxiety, shame, etcetera, for the childhood trauma and all that. And so those people that knew my background, knew my struggles, knew my shame. I was a high school dropout, runaway, queen of self-sabotage, welfare mom. Those who knew me then and see me now, they're like, "Lynn, you're still the same person. Your light has always been bright." But the
Mm,
difference is, and I finally got this 2 years ago, they always saw my light. I never saw my light back then.
right.
Now I own my light.
Right. Oh, I love that.
So that is, I think, so powerful. And
Yeah.
this has been such a sacred, beautiful conversation. We have 2 minutes left, Francine. So I want to ask you, is there anything you want to share? They have all your details below, but any words of wisdom more than you already shared that you want to leave our listeners with today, especially if it's
Hmm.
a woman who maybe is struggling a little right now?
Yeah. So this popped in. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it just popped in. So I'm gonna go with it. It's a Wayne Dyer quote, and it's when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Oh, girl.
Right? Like that is
One
my
of my favorites. That's why I was like, what is
yeah.
she born from the same mother?
Right?
So it is, you and I know it is so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
And
not just a
just
quote. It's not.
and for those people that live in their brain, just stand up from the desk or wherever you're listening to this. If you're in your car, don't move, don't don't do anything,
Don't
but
do this.
just go to the other side of your desk and just look at it differently, right? Problems that we have in our lives can have the same effect. If you look at it differently, it does if you choose to look at it differently, it changes.
Yeah. There's another message from Wayne Dyer. There's a
Mm,
spiritual solution for every problem.
yep, I love that.
Right? And Francine, I think we could fill 4 hours, my friend.
Right.
It's nice to meet a kindred spirit. I'm so grateful that you were able to join me today, and I want to invite everyone to visit Francine at francinetirrell.com. Check the show notes on whatever platform you're listening to, and be sure to connect with her, follow her, check out all of her offerings. And when you join us at the inspiredlifeevent.com in April 11th and 12th of 2026 here in Quincy, Massachusetts, you'll be able to meet her in person, my friends. Francine, thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. This has been great.
Until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.